In addition to his legacy as a president and humanitarian, Jimmy Carter leaving behind a large family legacy, 4 children, 11 great-grandchildren, and 14 great-grandchildren. NewsNation correspondent Elizabeth Prann recently spoke with one of Carter's grandsons, Jason Carter, about his grandfather's life. She's joining us live from the Carter Center tonight to tell us more about that conversation. And Elizabeth, I know this was an at times emotional conversation as well.
Yeah. It wasn't a very emotional conversation. We have been to the Carter Center a number of times since his wife of 77 years passed back in 2023. And I will tell you, for a little bit of color this evening, there's just as much members of the public here as there are media. You can see behind me, people are leaving flowers, they're lighting candles. I mean, he's really synonymous with the Peach State when we talk about the former president. Remember when he served in the Navy, he served in state politics. He was the governor here in Georgia before his epic rise to the presidency. When I spoke with Jason, he's one of the 11 grandchildren who you mentioned. There's a number of things that the former president was so proud of during not only his work in the White House, but also before and after. Here he is.
So let's talk about the presidency, because they've been interviewed I don't know how many times, and they'll say they left involuntarily, but he's still proud of what he did and acknowledges the shortcomings of those 4. There was a lot done in those 4 years.
Sure. I mean, I think it's an interesting presidency historically because of how much was accomplished in that time, and certainly the politics of the moment really defined presidencies at the time of the presidency. And in that way, he ran and lost at the end of his presidency, and in that way, it was a political failure. But when you look at the actual content of that presidency, certainly with the benefit of hindsight and some real historical perspective, it was incredibly successful, and it was incredibly ahead of its time. And so he was always been proud of those accomplishments and felt good in them. And of course, the judgment of politics or the judgment of the media for him was never the most important judgment.
Well, and you have the highs with the lows. So did he take both of those sort of with a grain of salt? Because it's almost like he would acknowledge something like the Iran hostage conflict, but then, you know, the Camp David Accords, that was just a notch in his belt. But those are 2 significantly big markers in history.
Sure. I think that he would say that his greatest accomplishment during the presidency was the Camp David Accords. That peace in the Middle East was such a fundamental part of his life's journey, that he believed in it. He fought for it for his whole life, and was able to achieve and participate at that historic moment at Camp David, in part because of just grit and will and the ability to bring people together and communicate about humanity in a fundamental way. I think he would say that was his greatest accomplishment. And then the rest of his life was spent trying to expand on that and to bring true peace to the Middle East. And in that way, I think that's one of his biggest regrets.
You know, what Jason spoke a lot about really was how much he cared about his family, how much he loved fishing and reading to his grandchildren. And you talk about his work here at the Carter Center, because they did, as you know, live in Plains, Georgia, about 90 miles from here. But Rosalynn and the former president would travel at least every 3 weeks to a month up until their 90s, up until they physically couldn't travel anymore. They would get to work here at the Carter Center, and then they would pull the Murphy bed out of the wall and sleep here and get to work the next morning, really showing you their dedication. So yes, he has passed, the president has passed, but I've spoken to a number of people here on the ground, including the vice president of global operations, who says the work is just beginning. There's well over 3,000 employees here at the Carter Center, and they will continue his mission.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.